Hey everybody, welcome back to Goju Tech Talk. Testing chat. Chat's working. Excellent. Alrighty. So here we are. What are we going to talk about tonight? Well, it turns out, by the way, I just finished some exercise, and so I just hop out of the shower and I'm a little bit disheveled and all that stuff. So it is what it is. Hopefully all of you are not here for my awful hair, and instead you're here for me to talk about and us to discuss things related to technology and what's going on in the world. So we're going to talk about two things. And the first thing actually popped up in my feed last night. I was really tempted to get back on the channel and talk about it as soon as I saw it, but I was pretty tired. And so I thought, I'll just save this for today. So it's this Wired article. And by the way, can somebody inform Wired that like light mode is the thing of the past, and when you do light mode and that I'm going to go blind here. So we got to make this smaller. And I could make it bigger and give you guys more advertising space, but I'm not going to go blind in the process. So you've got to like make this dark modeable. Maybe it is dark modeable. Okay, well, my view is, and this is probably a futuristic view, everything should just be dark mode by default. TVs have been doing it for a long time. And if you don't believe me, look at this. What if we did this? Like, do you see the reflection on my, like, I'm getting a sunburn doing this. So, no, we're not going to do that. And the truth is, I've been kind of using the dark mode stuff for a long time. I would configure Visual Studio that way. As I think you've seen, it's Visual Studios that way. I've got this guy, just everything's dark mode. When I was playing my text video games, I would have it in dark mode, dark background mode. I mean, anybody that is using their computer for a prolonged period of time is doing this. It sounds like you can hear the dog barking in the background. Hold on a second. Merlin, get in here. Let's see if he comes. Sometimes he comes, but sometimes it's too big of a threat and he needs to be doing his, yeah, it's probably another dog. So he just exited. I know the sounds too. So he just went out the doggy door to go chase them around the backyard. Should be quieter. All right. So I saw this Wired article last night and I was so inspired. Because when I hear people like Sam Altman invoke this line, I mean, is this implying, Sam, that you believe you're a missionary? Sam Altman slams Meta's AI talent poaching spree. Missionaries will beat mercenaries. So hold on. So I just want to make sure I understand. So are you trying to say that you are a missionary? Because that's what it feels like you're saying. And this I find highly amusing. Yeah, exactly. And the truth is, when missionaries use this line, I love it. When people that are not missionaries use this line, I don't love it. And we're going to talk a little bit about it. I find it doubly humorous that you have two people, Sam Altman, missionary? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. And him calling another person who runs Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, like, I feel like this is a battle in this space, not in this space. I don't think either of these guys are necessarily in this space. But if anybody is, as strange as this sounds, I'm going to give you my take, which is maybe an unusual take. Because I'll be honest, I'm not like a huge fan of Zuckerberg. But I believe, based on the way I think about this term, Zuck is more of a missionary than Altman is. And the reason is simple. Missionaries, and by the way, I'm not saying that I think Mark Zuckerberg is actually a missionary. I'm saying that if you have two mercenaries and you were to position one of them as more missionary than the other, I think I'd place Zuckerberg as more missionary than Sam Altman. And the reason is pretty simple. Missionaries dedicate their life to something. And Mark Zuckerberg has sort of done that. I mean, whether you like the guy or not, and I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan. This company has spoken to me many times, and I am sort of not super interested in working with them. And no judgment. Like, if my friends want to work there and help them and do whatever, that's cool. It's just not for me, right? Like, I want to do other things, and I don't really care about creating social media systems. And I also don't like the ethics that Mark Zuckerberg has had in the past. I think it's pretty sketchy. However, this guy trying to claim that he potentially is more of a missionary than Zuck is super strange. I mean, this is the guy that basically has been called out directly for lying about this whole $100 million signing bonus. So if any of you have heard about this, there's this rumor floating around. Somehow it's even floating around Merly Slack. They should probably stamp that out, Taylor. They should have some guidelines on people fact-checking themselves a little bit more before they post stuff on public Merly channels, so we don't start spreading misinformation. So maybe you can handle that. But so did Meta do this? I heard about this too. And then what I did is I investigated it, and basically, no, it's kind of nonsense. It didn't really happen to the best of our knowledge. And the part that's interesting, like, so we heard about this $100 million thing. Who cares, right? Not a big deal. The reason why it's relevant is its origin story. Its origin story supposedly comes from this guy, that he's making this claim that his people, right, are being offered $100 million signing bonuses to join Meta. And he's announcing this, and he did it on some podcast or something. Let's see if we can find the details of it. So he took to social media to refute viral claims made by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman that he was offered a $100 million signing bonus, right? So he calls this fake news. And so I forget where. Here we go. Bayer's post came after Altman's comment during the Uncapped podcast, in which he said Meta started making giant offers to a lot of people on his team, like $100 million signing bonuses. It's crazy. Okay, so let's think about this, guys. So this is what Sam Altman said. We can look it up, and I believe it. I don't know that I've seen the original source, but I've seen a lot of people say that he said this. So let's just assume for a moment that this is true. Also, we know that Sam has done a bunch of other, like, pretty shady stuff. So why would Sam Altman do this, right? Like, it seems strange to be talking about how another company is potentially stealing your people. Well, in the discussion, what he talks about is he's saying that, yeah, right here, he's happy that none of them are considering the offer. Okay, so first he's basically saying on behalf of all OpenAI employees that they're not taking the offer. If you look at OpenAI, they have a bit of a retention problem right now. This is not me just saying stuff. Just Google it and ask yourself how many people in like their executive staff that were there, I don't know, 2 years ago that are still there today. And basically, everybody's left the building. Why? Why is this happening? Like, did they all just get better job offers? Like, what is exactly going on? Why is there a mass exodus? Again, people are not stupid. So something's going on. So we know that people are leaving. And in some cases, they're leaving and they don't even have they don't have plans. They're like, I'm just going to do something. I just want to get the heck out of this OpenAI thing. So we know that they have a retention problem. That's a fact. And so now we have Altman coming in saying, oh, well, people are not even considering this $100 million signing bonus stuff. Well, we know people are leaving for significantly less than that. So this is a bit confusing. Like, what's going on? Well, if you think about it strategically, because we do know that Meta is trying to recruit people, like we've got Lucas here saying, yeah, we're out and we're joining Meta. So we know that that's real. And given that, what Altman is doing, again, keep in mind that Altman, while I may not be a huge fan of him, he's not dumb. And most of the executive CEOs, no matter what kind of pretty face they put on to the public, although admittedly, I don't know that many CEOs can do a podcast and keep it real for hours on end and still be faking it. Maybe they can, but I think that after a while, you start getting tired and you become yourself. And if you don't believe me, check out Sam Altman's talk. I think it was a TED Talk where he gets called out and they're talking about how it looks like he's infringing on copyright from Disney, I think. And that's the guy that's interviewing him. And a lot of people in the audience start clapping. And he turns to the audience and says, yeah, clap it up. And you get a moment. You get a real moment of like, oh. So that's the real guy. That's the guy that you get behind. And then you look at some of the actions too, right? Like if he was a missionary, let's just go back to the missionary thing for a second. Missionaries are supposed to be principally concerned with things other than money. I'm not saying that they don't have a money interest. Obviously, you need to be able to feed your family and all that stuff, and you want to be compensated in a reasonable way. But the whole point of being a missionary is that you're concerned about things that are not related to money. That's your primary focus. Okay. So let's go with that for a second. Let's have that also be an axiom. If that were the case, and you principally are not motivated by money, why then would you create a company that is a nonprofit and then try to turn that company into a for-profit if you didn't care about money principally? If you were a missionary, why would you do that? The math is not mathing. Not for me, anyway. It doesn't make sense. Like, I'm having difficulty holding these. Whenever I have difficulty holding two different ideas in my head simultaneously because they're conflicting with each other in sort of their truthfulness, that's usually a signal for me that something's not right. And so I have a hard time understanding how anyone can be a missionary, as it sounds like Sam has decided he is, and then still be doing things like, oh, but I'm going to have a company called OpenAI, but our models are not going to be open. They're going to be closed. and then I'm going to create the company so it's a nonprofit, but then I'm going to try to change it and do all these crazy things to then make it a for-profit. And then I'm going to do other things like invest in CoreWeaver and get like a large amount of stake in that company, principally so I can make the waters rocky for Microsoft, who is getting uncomfortable with our position. I mean, if you follow the breadcrumbs, all you have to do is just follow the breadcrumbs, and it becomes pretty clear that there's some stuff going on, and I'm not sure that he falls in this category. So, but you go back to why he's doing this. Like, we didn't answer this question. So why did he do this? A lot of people believe that he's doing it to make the employees that are considering leaving, and many of them are, as we've seen from the actual data. Also, that's another sign. This is why generally at Merly, like, we don't hire people from OpenAI and other places that are very much, no offense, but they seem to be principally driven by money. Like, why else would you work there? There's many other places where you can work and you can do incredible things related to machine learning and artificial intelligence. But if all you really care about, or what you care about primarily, is money, then yeah, a hot startup where you can have shares that are going to 10x themselves and you don't mind potentially selling your soul to the devil, do your thing, right? So now you got to ask yourself, though, is that when you recruit people like that and their principal concern is money, then what is going to happen when other people come in and offer them more money? Are they going to stay loyal to you? Probably not, because they're not missionaries. They're mercenaries. That's why I hire missionaries. That's why I work with missionaries. That it takes a while to identify who the missionaries are. But after a while, you quickly get a sense is that they're the ones who do things like get up at 6 a.m. and have meetings with companies like Audi, and then work their butt off all day long for the last 12, 14 hours, and then still show up to a podcast, a stream that their boss is doing because they're so engaged and they're so deeply invested they just want to know more. That's the kind of lunacy that you get from missionaries. And that is maybe one of the people that works at Merly. And those are the kinds of people that I hire. Also, folks like Smuff, also a missionary. Tim Matson, also a missionary. These are people that they cannot principally be bought. They can't be bought. They are going to work at a place that aligns with their ethics. They still want to get paid, for sure. But once you reach a certain compensation level to that they're like comfortable with this, they'll do their thing. This is part of the reason why I was at Intel Labs for over 10 years. I just really believed in the charter. Was the pay the best? No. Did I turn other really lucrative offers down constantly? Yes, I did. Why? Because I'm a missionary. I just do stuff that I really believe in. And being a missionary, part of the thing that I do is when I see nonsense like this, it irks me a little bit because I think that some people may not be paying attention and they may think, oh, that's right. They may just read the headline and be like, yeah, Sam, you are such a missionary. And yeah, that other guy is such a mercenary and you should beat him. And let me believe in that story, right? It's one of those things where you can't, what is the saying? Don't judge a book by its cover. So just because someone has an appearance that looks like it's super friendly and trustworthy and is soft-spoken and has good sort of public charisma doesn't necessarily mean that that person is altruistic or a good person. Follow the data. Just follow the data. The data, the actions that people take, that's usually, it'll tell you very clearly whether they're a missionary or a mercenary. You can just follow that. Their actions will essentially tell you that story all on its own. You don't have to do much work. So this is supposedly why Altman did this. And this was fake news. And he was doing it to try to make the people that were at OpenAI feel like they were being lowballed, and then create conflict, and then also figure out who was considering the offers, and then to do things. They're also supposedly going down in the, I believe next week, I think they're doing something like a full week shutdown. I mean, T, maybe you can look this up to see if this is actually real news or if it's fake news. But I heard that they were going to do something like a company-wide shutdown for a week, and part of that was so they could reevaluate the compensation strategy to try to fight this in a real way rather than the pretend way, which is what they're doing and what has massively failed in this attempt to make people feel like they're being lowballed. So then you would know who's considering this, and then you can up their salary or something. I don't know. It's like, you know how we're talking about degrees of separation? One of the ways to do this, if you're like a highly skilled strategist, is you have many levels of indirection. So the degrees of separation are so enormous that people trying to walk down that rabbit hole are not going to get there. Unfortunately, Sam's degrees of separation are usually only one level, right? It's just one step. And so anybody with a reasonable intellect and the ability to connect some dots can see that, oh, here's this thing, and oh, yeah, you're trying to stop that. Cool. Now, some advice that I would give him if he's trying to be like a little bit more clever is to make it multiple degrees of separation. Like, I kind of feel bad. I hope that he and his folks are not watching this, because I may have just taught them something to make them more effective. But this is a demonstration that the strategic thinking is not all that strategic. It's actually like basic 101. Like, you'd learn this maybe in the first 5 pages of The Art of War, right? It's like this isn't masterful at all. Even though someone is saying like it's pretty clever. I think they have it somewhere in here that it's pretty clever that he used this. Oh, here we go. So this is a user comment on Bear's post on X saying, bro didn't get 100 million sign-on standard offer. Bear replied, thank God, Sam, let me know I've been lowballed. Right? So it's basically him trying to game them, but gaming them in a way that's pretty artificial. Pretty sort of like inconsequential. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Another echo to similar sentiment, writing, Sam Altman clearly just threw out the 100 million figure to make potential takers think they were being lowballed. Bear replied, yes, it's a brilliant move. Got to give him that. Bear, bro, good for you for getting out, but I don't know that this is a brilliant move. I think you're probably giving him like a little bit too much credit. I think this is like, this isn't even a strategy. This is just tactics 101, right? Tactics are like the things you do that are sort of very immediate and they don't have like larger consequences. Strategies are things that require actual thought and planning, and they influence a lot of things. So this doesn't even qualify in my mind as strategy. This is just a tactic, and I think it's a pretty poor one. So try a little harder next time, Sam, and maybe, it'll be successful. Not that I'm rooting for you to succeed, but it's so simplistic. It's pretty boring. Okay, so Taylor saying OpenAI reportedly began a company-wide shutdown on June. Okay. Oh, maybe it already started. Describing it as mandatory week-long break for employees to recover from unsustainable work schedules. Yeah, I heard something similar. I thought it was next week, but yeah, maybe it started this week. And so supposedly what they're doing is they're doing this so they can recomp salaries. And if you want to leave YouTube, yeah, I do. OpenAI shutting. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is basically, and again, this is more fake news, guys. Like, it's it's weird to say this, I think, because it's one of those things that we all hear about, but it's like we hear about it, but then it feels like oftentimes people don't listen to it. So let me try to reiterate the saying. Don't believe everything you read. So, or don't believe everything you hear, right? And so, in some sense, I think maybe we believe the intention of this is our friend tells us something and we don't believe that. Okay, that's a good start. But it doesn't apply just to your buddies. It applies to things like this. Like futurism, for example, is saying OpenAI is shutting down for a week. OpenAI is battered. Okay, potentially, but it's not because they're working too hard. I think they're battered because they're losing talent like crazy, and they need to figure out. I mean, they just have hired a whole bunch of mercenaries. This is the Bible again. This is just simple strategic hiring. If you hire people that have deep care about what you're doing. Hey, Arjun, welcome. And yes, T, that's exactly right. I think just look. Oh, Nepali, awesome. Yeah, we actually have. It seems a fairly large following in Nepal, which was somewhat unexpected. By the way, I'm re-energizing myself a little bit with this stuff that Taylor has got me slightly hooked on, which is this magic mind stuff. It's quite good. And I think it has like a little bit of caffeine in it, but it's pretty good energy. I like it. So back to this. Let's see what this article says real quick. In a bid to retain its staffers amid a Meta poaching spree. By the way, it's not just Meta. The former CTO of OpenAI, she's created her own startup. I forget the name of the startup. Maybe Taylor can figure that out. It's another AI company. And when she left, or I think at this point, maybe she's recruited something like maybe a dozen or so folks from OpenAI. And then, of course, there was a major coup where a large number or some number of people that were working in the AI lab at OpenAI defected and then created Anthropic. So usually, you know, we've seen this type of thing before. I'll give you an example, but real quickly on the chat, I am not Nepali. I'm not from Nepal, but for some reason, it seems as though YouTube likes to promote our stuff in that space, which is great. And I think that you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong about this, Arjun, but it seems as though there's a growing amount of people in Nepal that speak English or are learning to speak English. And so I suspect this might be part of the reason why we're getting an increased amount of interest from people from Nepal or that general area. Hopefully that makes sense. So where was I going here? According to, I was talking about the please speaking Nepali. Yeah, unfortunately, here we'll type this just so it's more clear. Yeah, Thinking Machines Lab. That's right. Hi, Arjun. Sadly, I don't speak Nepali, but maybe YouTube will eventually add subtitles in Nepali for GTT episodes. And some of you may be saying to yourself, okay, so if Arjun doesn't speak English or speaks limited English and you're speaking and he doesn't understand that, why would he be able to understand it if you write it? Well, Google Translate. And the truth is that you have the translation systems that are happening now. I think this is part of the reason why channels can go more global, is they have almost instant translations that for devices you can wear or you can buy. And so it's, in some ways, it's changing the landscape of the accessibility of content that's created around the world, because people now can get access to content in another language and get the actual spoken language either dubbed in their language, or they can get the subtitles generated almost in real time. So see, Arjun understood, I think, what I just wrote, probably because he then did a translate to see what it is. He probably doesn't understand what I'm saying right now, but if I'm going to type him in the chat again, and then he'll probably understand that. So mostly, I'm just sharing this. So as we get, we actually have a huge following that is not, it seems, the first language is English. I would say the majority of GTTers, of Jeters, are not first language English speakers. I'm not sure exactly how this happened, but I think it's happened based on the demographic data that YouTube has given us. And so we're trying to figure out, YouTube is starting to create like auto subtitles for other languages. And so hopefully this will help out for people like Arjun. And if you see me typing in the chat to try to share this stuff, that's what I'm doing. And maybe Taylor can help translate some of this in text to Arjun, just to let him know, if you wouldn't mind, T, just to let him know that we're I guess maybe I've already said it, but you say whatever you want to say. Okay. So now, going back to the exodus that happens, I want to share something that I think is important to understand. Is when you have a company and you have sort of a bunch of, like, the founders or C-suite folks all exit stage left, they all leave in a very fast way. I'm from Northern California. I'm from Northern California, Palo Alto area. So if the senior leadership is exiting stage left, this is usually a sign that something might be amiss. And it's not just the case of OpenAI. If you read about the history of Fairchild Semiconductor, I think. Yeah. It's founded by the traitorous 8, right? And this is a group of 8 engineers, including Robert Noyce, Gordon Moore, and they all left Shockley Semiconductor due to disagreements with its management. This is a fairly well-documented case of this person that was able to recruit a bunch of highly talented people. And then after they started working with the person that was in charge, that person in charge was sort of deemed to be just a lunatic. They're just out of their mind. They're not necessarily the best person to work with. So what happened? The key people that somehow fell to this, oh, that's sweet, Taylor. Wow. Look at that. Taylor basically just wrote a sentence and then did an auto translate to Nepali. I don't even know how the heck he did this, but yeah, wow. Taylor's always leveling me up, right? This is, again, Missionary. I didn't ask him to do that. He's just like, okay, I'm going to just level here. I'll show you so you can see what is going on here. Right. So Arjun joined and we're talking with him. And then I was asking Taylor to help out. And he types this now. Taylor's, yeah. Yes. And language models, again, this is what they were built for, right? That's the whole language part, is they're really effective for things like natural language. And so, yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's great. Good stuff. All right. So the point of this story that I'm telling, that I'm half telling and half discussing with the chat, is that we've seen this type of mass exodus before. And again, one of the things that I love is I think, as those people who know me, when I was a kid, my least favorite topic was history. I really did not like history at all. I thought it was super boring. I'll be honest. That and maybe literature. I really liked science. I liked math. Then I stumbled along. I stumbled across programming, and everything was fantastic. But I didn't like literature, art, history. Geography I also was not super interested in. As I've gotten older, I have realized that I actually find all three of those things very interesting. I'm interested in art. In fact, as you can see here, I'm now having the AI help me create my own art. This is not an accident. I put this in the background on purpose so we can start to see. I may start doing this for all the episodes, is to have some of the AI art that I'm generating as thumbnails for GTT for us to look at. So when I can't show the whole screen because people haven't figured stuff out, then we have cool, fun stuff to look at. And then you can tell me if you vote it up or vote it down. So this one, I think, is one of the ones we're using now for, it might be the one that we're using for the Legacy of a Developer episode. And then that's actually our second topic. We're going to get into the details of how I vibed myself a GTT thumbnail generator. And I'll explain to you how I did it, how I'm using it, what the next steps are, and why I think that that's a great use of vibe coding. To try to make the point that I try to look for the good in things. I try to find that, as Johan was mentioning, I do try very hard to find that balance. And I try to not just evict things just because people are sort of, I think, positioning it the wrong way. Like, I don't love that the vibe coders are trying to, I don't love what like Sundar Pichai is doing with his thing about the 30% code and trying to pretend like it's a production quality system. Maybe one day, but it's not there today. Like, we all know this. Like, we're not dumb. Please stop trying to sell us a bill of goods. It's working for some people, but it's not working for those of us that are in the know. And what happens is, those of us who are in the know, we also have influence, and then we tell other people and they trust us because they know us. And then what happens is that we lose faith in you collectively. It's like what we're doing right now with Altman, is I'm showing essentially concrete evidence of what happens when you have a really bad leader that somehow pulls in highly talented people, largely because oftentimes they have money. That was the case, as I understand it, with Shockley, is that I think that he had money and he had an interesting vision, but then working with him was just a nightmare, that he was just a pure lunatic. And while I've never met Sam Altman, and I'm not super interested in meeting him, but I may have to at some point, based on the things that I've heard, I'm not a fan. And I'll, of course, play nice when I meet people that I'm not a fan of. But just because I meet someone because I'm at an event and people want to introduce me for whatever reason. And there are people that really want me to talk to him and things. And I'm not super interested. That day may arrive. And when it arrives, I'll play nice, but it's not like he's going to go on speed dial. I've met other people that are far more influential than Altman that I'm not like a super fan of. And I meet him and I'm like, okay, cool. Next, I'm on to other things. I tend to want to hang out with the missionaries, not the mercenaries. And generally, again, it becomes really clear to me who's who very quickly. Like, for example, I met a CEO yesterday, both Taylor and I did, who's clearly a missionary. In fact, I even used this very line, I think, in that meeting, T, about, I think I said, it's clear to me that you're a missionary because of the things that you're talking about. Didn't I say something like that, T? So the point is like missionaries will out themselves because they talk about things that matter. And they'll know things that matter. They'll know stories like this whole Shockley Semiconductor and Fairchild Semiconductor. They'll understand these details, and then they'll try to learn from them, right? And not have it be. They'll try not to repeat this and be better leaders than what's going on here. So maybe there's a couple different lessons, but one of them perhaps is that we should be students of history. Otherwise, we are bound to repeat it. So know your history, and then you can avoid things like the mass exodus because you'll hopefully be better leaders. So here in this article, over the past week, Meta hired at least 8 OpenAI researchers. So again, Sam was saying no one's taking the bait. Okay, well, the data seem to show that people are. And by the way, we know now and also it's Meta came out and said that they're not offered these ridiculous things. And they even did an analysis of some of the C-suite folks. By the way, these OpenAI folks who I'm sure are supremely talented, and they're great machine learning people. They're not C-suite. And so while they have skill, the C-suite folks tend to be the ones that like are really doing well. And a lot of that has to do with, again, they have many different skills. They also have a very strong network. There's just a bunch of things that make them one-offs, essentially. And because of that, they end up being the highest paid people in any company. So what they did is they looked at the second highest paid person at Meta, who I think was their COO or something like that. And they looked at his salary and his bonuses and things and what he's making today and what he was making last year. And he's like at the top of the food chain. Somehow I think he only pulled in 22 million last year. So if 22 million, hey, Miss Janet, welcome. So if their COO or whoever this person is only pulling in 22 million, do we really think that random engineers are going to get $100 million signing bonus? And keep in mind, the signing bonuses, the way that they tend to be structured, at least historically, is they're prorated for a 12-month execution, which basically means that you get the sum of money, and then after 12 months, you don't have to pay any back. But if you leave the company like at 6 months, you have to pay half of it back, this kind of thing. So think about this for a second. That would largely mean that the people that are getting the the 100 million AI signing bonus are going to get the 100 million and paid fully in 12 months. Does that make logical sense to you guys? No. Instead, what you would do is minimally, I mean, again, maybe the CEO had us coming on. But what you do is you have better golden handcuffs on them and you give them equity in the form of $100 million, but you have it vest over like a 4 or an 8 year period, which is going to handcuff the company to you for significantly longer, you don't do it in the form of a signing bonus. It doesn't make sense because it vests immediately, essentially, and you're only locking them for 12 months. So again, talking strategically, it doesn't even make sense. If Sam was trying to be like a true baller, he would say they're offering $100 million in equity or something. And then that would make more sense because that would be distributed. It would be distributed over a more prolonged period of time. And then when the engineer leaves after 12, I don't know what these ads are. We got to get these ads off the screen. Okay, look, we're going to go to something that's not showing ads. Okay, they're all showing ads. It's ads on ads. At least you would tell a story that makes a little bit more sense with the $100 million is a 4-year or an 8-year or some prolonged vesting makes more sense because then if you have a hopper, which is an employee or an engineer that hops around from company to company to try to level up, because this is pretty common in Silicon Valley, it prevents them from raking the company over the coals, right? And so you offer them the 100 million, but they only get it after they've served 8 years. And you can do things like tail heavy equity plans, which is like what Amazon does. So I realize I'm probably dropping a huge amount of stuff on you, but like the tail equity or the tail heavy equity plans, which Amazon is notorious for, will do things like you get a 2% vest in the first year. You get like a 5% the second year, you get maybe 25% the third year, and then you get everything else in the fourth year. And what Amazon finds is generally what they do is they put people on PIPs or they fire them within the first 2 years. So it works to Amazon's advantage. Now, you can say a lot of things about Mark Zuckerberg, but he's not dumb. He's not dumb. Generally, billionaires are not stupid people, just speaking truthfully, right? Like there are some, mostly it's the ones that like inherited their fortune, but if they kind of made it, they probably know a thing or two. And so they may pretend to be stupid, like on TV or in the news, but they're not. Behind closed doors, they've got a lot going on. Mark Zuckerberg is going to do the math and be like, well, why would we give them a $100 million signing bonus? We give them a $100 million vesting package and extend it out over a decade. And it can pay them $10 million per year. That's far better. So then when they hop after 2 years, we've only paid them $20 million. The other 80 we keep. That would be the way I would do it. That's probably the way that Zuck would do it. That's probably the way that almost all these guys would do it. And they wouldn't do this $100 million signing bonus nonsense that Sam is inventing. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's how you do something that's a little bit more strategic than like this tactical BS that, I mean, in some sense, I don't, okay, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it. You know, like it's one of those things where I think what sometimes happens is when you have someone that's relatively smart and they somehow end up being lucky, but they're not necessarily like the greatest person, they will surround them with people that are an echo chamber that will basically just tell them that sort of like everything they're doing is right. And they won't necessarily be the smartest people. They won't necessarily be missionaries. They won't be there to make things better. They're there just to kind of leech off of you because you have something that they want. Now, the downside of this is it creates an echo chamber for you. And when you're in an echo chamber, the people that you've surrounded yourself with, if you have stupid ideas, they're not likely to tell you, hey, Sam, this is actually pretty dumb. You should level this up and tell a better story because this will be more believable. Instead, they're just going to be like, Sam, brilliant idea, bro. Brilliant. That's so awesome. Let's do that. It's going to just create the storm. And you're like, wait a second. This took all of 7 seconds to figure out. Surely there's a better story here that we can put together that's not going to be unwound so easily. But that would require you don't surround yourself by people that's just an echo chamber. That would require that you surround yourself with people like Taylor Dolezal or Tim Mattson or Smuff or even Ver, who's going to openly disagree with me and say, yeah, actually, bad take, Goju. Like Metaphor. Metaphor, who I absolutely love. I mean, clearly a missionary. And he challenges me all the time, mostly just to make me better. And I love it. I want him to keep doing it. I'm learning a lot from just listening to things that he's saying. And does he come off a little biting sometimes? I mean, it could come off that way, but not to me. I have pretty thick skin, and I believe that his intentions are wholesome. He's fostering goodwill. He's taking time to articulate his argument and explain misses that I'm making. And generally, what I've seen is he's right. For the most part, he's right. And I don't care about being right. I care about being better. I just want to be better. And he's helping me become better. And so this is one, like, if there's a takeaway in all of this, we haven't even looked at this Wired story, but if there's a takeaway on things that you can do to actually become a missionary and grow your knowledge and become a better person, it is to surround yourself with people that are actually missionaries who trust you and you trust, that can share things with you that will make you better, that will help you learn better virtues or qualities. And by the way, I love that the chat is a little bit more active tonight. That makes me super thrilled. And maybe what I'll try to start doing is letting people know at least a little bit in advance when I'm going to do a stream, so then they can join in. By the way, what is this? Just out of curiosity, what is this crown thing? Like, it says it's a top fan, but I don't know. Like, again, pardon my ignorance. I don't know much about anything. And so I see Miss Janet here, but I don't know, like, if I click on this. Oh, it's experience. Okay, so you guys are getting experience. That's cool. So you both have 25 experience. Keep going. Level up. I think you level up when you make more comments. I don't know. We'll find out together. Yeah, I noticed that Vare had it, T, on his thing. Okay, so we're going down the rabbit hole with this Sam thing. I think we've looked at it from a couple different angles. I don't want to. I probably have already said more than I should have. I want to be honest. The way that I make my decisions about things and people is I tend to just use evidence. And there was a period of time where I'm just going to be fully transparent here to let you know how this really works for me, so you can understand how my views change and how my views evolve, because they probably will on this channel. And I don't want people to be like super confused. When Sam was fired by the board, I thought that the way he handled that, at least publicly, I didn't know what went behind the scenes, but publicly, I thought he did a really good job, sort of not freaking out, not lashing out in social media. And, you know, there's a lot of people that say a lot of crazy things on social media that ends up coming to bite them, and they lose trust. And then either they go totally the way of the dodo, which is extinction, or they backtrack and they apologize. And so, for example, there's a guy who owns one of the largest social media sites, and he also owns other companies. One of them creates electric cars, another one creates rockets. And he recently went on record on his social media site saying some very strong things, very strong claims about another person that caused a whole bunch of drama, I guess. We'll just say drama. And then he walked it back. He apologized and said, oh, you know, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean that, all this stuff. So what's the point of all this is that don't say those stupid things to begin with. Just control your emotions and then be a stoic, right? And so while I saw this person make this mistake, it wasn't that surprising because this person kind of like loses their stuff constantly. I was actually very impressed by how cool under the pressure Sam was, that he just got fired essentially from his own company. And I didn't see him lash out, at least not publicly, to the people that did the coup on him. Now, I'm a little bit of an insider, so I know stuff that the general public probably doesn't know. And so I had some, we'll say I had some birds whispering in my ear telling me what was sort of really going on. And I had a good sense of it. And I think that Sam was broadsided by it. And I know with some degree of certainty who the main actors were, but it's not my place to say. You can read about it and then try to form your own opinions. I can't go on any kind of public record telling you the things that I've been told. But what I saw in that situation was Sam did a really good job with his public image and the way he handled this. He even, when I think Ilya apologized, he like hearted him back or something. And I was like, that's pretty like mature. It shows a lot of stoicism and rationality to not kind of lose yourself in the moment. And at that point, I was feeling positive vibes towards Sam. I'll be honest. I was thinking, this guy just got ousted. I was imagining, what if that happened to me? How would I feel? I would be furious, right? I probably wouldn't be able to keep my cool. I mean, probably I would, but I wouldn't be happy about it happening. So, I was just trying to be empathetic to his situation. And I was sort of leaning toward becoming on team Sam Altman. I'm just trying to share with you how my view of him has evolved. And principally, the view has evolved just from more data. Again, this is the thing that I think is strange, is I think that many of you Jeters, my hope is you listen to this because you get like a nuanced take on things. I tend to not be, I try very hard to not be polarizing. Either I tend to not be 1,000% for something, 1,000% against something. It's usually shades of gray. I have degrees of things that I like and degrees of things that I dislike. And then I try to understand, is it a net positive when you calculate all that in? And then I just do the thing based on what the calculation is. So the thing that makes this different, I think, than maybe what a lot of people do is, unless I have an abundance of data for someone, I'm not like a lifelong fan of anyone if they make enough mistakes. So, for example, right now, I'm a huge fan of Ryan Gosling. I just really like him. Almost all the interviews I see of him, he just seems like a cool guy. He seems very humble. I think, unfortunately, he's probably at least a little bit on the sauce with his recent stuntman thing, which no judgment, but I think that maybe that is a little judgy. Okay, maybe I'll walk that back and say, you do you, Ryan, but I like you with and without the steroid muscles. I'll leave it at that. That being said, while I'm a huge fan of Ryan Gosling today, if Ryan were to start making misstep after misstep after misstep and perpetually do this, what would happen is my love for him would slowly erode, and then it would switch. At some point, he would reach this point where it's like, bro, you were this superhero for all of us, and you've gone down this path that I don't know that I can support anymore. Let me give you an example of someone that kind of went down this path. And truthfully, I don't know how I feel about this right now, but I just want to share it with you, is someone that went down that path. I could use some YouTubers, but I don't want to do that because I'm not trying to create drama. So I'm going to talk about someone that I truly was a huge fan, and then they did something, and that now I'm uncertain. So that person is Mel Gibson. My favorite movie for a very long time was Braveheart. Love this movie. I thought it was a brilliant movie. I thought it was really powerful in how the William Wallace guy he just wanted to live a peaceful life. And he just wanted to have his farm and have his wife, and then things don't go that way. And he's kind of like, look, you forced this to happen. I very much feel like this is maybe the way my life has gone. Truthfully, I didn't even want to create this GTT channel. I wanted to do all these other things, but then I realized that there is so much hype that was going on. There's so much misinformation about AI and people doing things like this, like trying to say that they're missionaries. Like, really? If you're really a missionary, like, where is your AI degree, bro? Where is your PhD in artificial intelligence? Like, where are the systems that you've built in AI? Like, what about all that stuff? If you really are a missionary and this is your life cause, where is all that? Because I don't see any of it. I do see it from some of your co-founders like Mira and Ilya. Those guys feel like missionaries to me. And guess what? They've left the building. Because missionaries tend to not hang out with mercenaries, right? It's very simple. So what was my point again? I slightly distracted myself. Okay. Maybe someone from the chat can remind me what exactly I was talking about, because I'm kind of losing my train of thought. Sorry about that. I think I was talking about me losing faith in people, and now it's a gradual thing. So here's Braveheart. I love Braveheart, and I love Mel Gibson, and I'm just a huge fan. I know that Mel Gibson did, at least from what I recall, he did the research for Braveheart. He directed it, and he starred in it. He may have also written it, but I don't think so. I think somebody else wrote this, and then let's look this up. What involvement did Mel Gibson have in creating Braveheart? Mel Gibson was heavily involved in the creation of the film Braveheart, serving on multiple key roles. His roles included director. Gibson directed the film, guiding the overall vision. I think he did brilliantly with that. Producer. He also served as producer, and he starred in it. Initially, Gibson was interested in only directing the film and had considered other actors like Jason Patric for the role of Wallace. However, due to financing considerations, he ultimately agreed to star in the film as well. This dual role was demanding, but Gibson's commitment was crucial for the film's success. This literally, no joke, this was my favorite movie for a long period of time. Until maybe Inception came out. And then Inception became my favorite movie. And now I don't even know what it is. It might be Tenet. Clearly, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. Like, that's, I think, should be clear from prior episodes and stuff. But this was my favorite thing. Okay, so now we know that this is a little bit of Mel Gibson's story, but now let's follow the breadcrumbs, okay? So I'm asking it to tell me about the problems that Mel Gibson has dealt with in his career, because I want this to be mostly fact-based. And it's probably going to remember a little bit better than me. Now, we can't take this all verbatim because there's likely not going to be 100% accuracy, but we can get a general sense, right? So let's try to be intellectually honest and just see what it has to say. And so if you are like squeaky clean, and by the way, I don't think anybody is squeaky clean, but if you're kind of going on the right path, there's probably not too much that it's going to bring up here. And this is very hard, especially as you get older. It's just you're alive longer. You have more opportunities to make mistakes. And the more public you are, the easier it is for people to miscategorize, misclassify, and paint you as a villain. This is sort of what you have to understand the moment that you put yourself out there. Like, for example, there's tons of people that really kind of started not loving me when I became a spokesperson for Intel, which was strange to me. I didn't understand why this was happening. And then I started to get a sense for it. So it's just the byproduct of you being in the public eye. And if you can't handle that, don't be in the public eye. If you have really thick skin and you can handle people calling you names, telling you that you're an idiot, like just constantly berating you, and it can be water off a duck's back, then maybe you can be in the public eye. This is actually like super important because it's sort of a universal thing. It doesn't happen to just one person. I think all of us that are in the public eye experience this. Now, those things I think are how the public is going to react, but there are things that you can do that will make things worse, right? Like it's one thing to take your comments slightly out of context and you say this. So for example, in the last episode, I said something like, and then ClickHouse ends up being sued by some open source piece of software, some creator of open source software because they violated GPL. That was an example of what could happen. But someone that wants to edit out that part of that VOD could do so, and it will look like I'm saying ClickHouse is being sued for misusing AI and stealing other people's code. If you take it out of context, if you don't listen to that whole segment. And I know this, and that's okay, right? Like this is going to happen, but you can do things yourself. And so now we're going to go a little bit into what Mr. Gibson supposedly did. And as you can see here, it's not just one thing, right? This is what I mean about the evidence is if someone makes a mistake, like it happens. For example, let's take the Will Smith incident where he slapped Chris Rock. Is that great? No, it's not great. Like physical violence just in general is not the way to deal with problems. However, it's more complicated than that, okay? First of all, I've been a Will Smith fan my entire life. I mean, I'm talking back when he was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Like, and I'm not talking about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm talking about Fresh Prince, like the rapper, where they would make songs like Nightmare on My Street. You can tell I'm a fan because I'm just pulling this from my head, right? Or Kids Just Want to Have Fun, right? I think these are actual songs of Will Smith. So I've been a fan for a long time. The thing about being in the public eye is you're going to make mistakes. It's just the severity of the mistake. Did Will Smith make a mistake slapping Chris Rock? Yes, he absolutely did. However, I encourage you to watch that clip more. Just watch it in replay and understand what is happening. The dynamic of that room, at least the way that I interpret it, is Chris Rock is making fun of Will Smith and he's fine with it. He's laughing. He's just sitting in his chair. It's a jovial time. Because Will Smith knows that he's in the limelight and he's going to get picked on and he just needs to be chill with it. Like, that's the cost. And Will's been in the spotlight for a very long time, so he's used to it. Then Chris Rock turns to his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, right? I think that's her name, Jada Pinkett Smith. Now, he starts talking to her about her hair. Now, you may or may not know this, but she has this condition where I think she's losing her hair. And it's something that she's, I think, gone on record that she's very sensitive about. Right? And in some ways you can understand, right? Like if my hair was just falling out, I would probably be sensitive to it as well. And now you're at the Academy Awards and the host is picking on you for something that's out of your control. You don't have any control over. I'm just trying to give a fair take to this, right? Let's just walk through the empathy of all the people involved, rather than just being like Will Smith is an idiot, right? It has layers. Let's just like be good citizens and not just immediately like look for the next person that we can throw under the bus and vilify. It's so easy, and it's so beneath us Jeters to do something that is so reductive. Like if we're anything, we're not reductive anti-intellectuals. We're the opposite of that. We're thinkers. We're stoics. We're empathetic to other people. And so here you have Jada Pinkett Smith. She's being picked on for something she's probably the most self-conscious of anything that she has. And if you look at Will Smith's face as he's looking at her and she's looking at him, you see there's a change. At least that's what I saw. You see a change, is that Will Smith is having the time of his life and he's just having fun and he knows it's just a joke. And then he sees that Jada Pinkett Smith is like on the verge of tears. He sees someone that he like deeply cares about. She's being attacked and she doesn't seem to be loving it. And she's looking at him almost in this state of like desperation. Now, what would you do if that's your partner and you're this super famous person and you have the ability to kind of like control the situation because everybody knows and loves you? You're sort of the biggest star in the room. And the person that you care about the most is like really actively being beaten up. Notice again that Will Smith did not care that he was being picked on. So as far as I recall, Chris was picking on him first. And he's like, that's cool, man. Yeah, bring it on. Like, we could do this all day. It's when they went after his wife. Like, what would you do? What would you do if somebody like went after your mom or your little sister or somebody that you deeply care about? Would you be able to just be like, laugh it off and have it be a joke? Or would you suddenly view it as different, right? That's why I say, you can pick on me as much as you want. I don't mind it. I know that I'm putting myself out there, and that's my situation. By default, by definition of GTT, I'm the bullseye, and I want people to target me. When you target other people, I don't like that, right? I'm the one with the bullseye. Focus on me, make fun of me, and it'll be good. But if you start making fun, I've even said this. I've even said, like, if you start picking on other people in the chat or in the comment section, I will not be thrilled with this. Why do I have sort of this like precognition that this is going to happen? 25 years running Nautica. I've seen some stuff. I know how this goes. And I've been in those situations where I've seen things go in the wrong direction and I've jumped in myself and I haven't dealt with it perfectly. So now the question that you have in your mind, or at least for me, is Will Smith's misstep enough to permanently destroy his career? Is that fair? I don't think so. I don't think that it is. I think that if he would have done something more horrific, like taking it to the next level, like he jumped on Chris Rock and just started like beating him to a pulp, that might be too much. But slapping him and then walking away, I mean, like, it's not great. I'm saying he should probably stay banned from the Academy Awards for, I don't know, 5 years or something. And he should probably have to, I don't know, like do something humiliating that will make the community understand that he's apologetic. Like, he should have to do community service for Chris Rock's properties for 100 hours. And you have to like see him mowing the lawn. Like, that would be a good sort of, I mean, because did Chris Rock get hurt by this? Really? I've been slapped many times. I've been given a lot worse than a slap. And if Chris Rock is dishing out insults and like trash talking people, thinking there's not going to be any repercussions, I think that he should have another thing coming. And by the way, I'm a fan of Chris Rock. Both things can be true. It's not one way or the other. It's not like you can only side with Will Smith. You can only side with Chris Rock. You can only side with Jada Pinkett Smith. I can side with all of them. They can all be right and all be wrong at the same time. That's what nuance is. Like, there are layers to this. Ultimately, the person that is largely responsible that resulted in this fiasco was Will. Will shouldn't have slapped Chris. Okay? So yes, he's the key target. But I mean, and I'm not trying to come down on Jada. it's probably going to sound like I am, but I'm not, is if you have a partner and your partner knows that you're hypersensitive about something and you're being attacked on that, and then you look to your partner in this state of desperation, do you think that your partner then may take that as a signal to then do something? Again, in the moment, I suspect that she may not have been putting all this together. I am not saying that she's at fault here. I'm saying I have been in situations like this, and I had a partner for a long period of time, and she would be picked on all the time, especially by her own family. And she knew that I was the kind of person who, like, I'll step in and sort things out. Like, that's the kind of person that I am. I won't do it unless people need me to do it, but you tell me that you need me to do it, and I will sort it out. And she would be in these situations where her brothers or her father or whoever are picking on her in a very public way. She never gave me that look because she knew. She knew that I would pull a Will Smith, because I would, because she mattered to me that much. And so she had in her heart of like, don't do it. I know this guy. I know that he deeply cares about me and that he's going to throw down. I've seen him throw down. I don't want him to do this. I'm going to keep this to myself. Again, I'm not blaming Jada Pinkett Smith. I'm not blaming Chris Rock. I am blaming Will Smith for the action, but it's more complicated than a simple crucify this person. It's so much more complicated than that. Anyway, the point of that story is a minor deviation on this high-level topic of people will make mistakes, and I'm not a big fan of writing people off just because they make a singular mistake. We all are going to make mistakes. In fact, people are probably going to edit this out and be like, look, he hates women. He's saying this thing about Jada Pinkett Smith. Like, I don't hate women. Like, my mom is one of my favorite role models in the world. But that's fine. If people want to believe that and take it out of context, it is what it is. On the other hand, there are people that do things and things happen over a prolonged period of time that starts to erode away your ability to have faith in them, that you start to lose the ability to foster goodwill because they're making mistakes in perpetuity, like some of the stuff that was happening with Mel Gibson. So we have some anti-Semitic remarks in 2006. That's not super great. I'm not even going to say some of the stuff that he has said because you can Google it to get more details. Some of the stuff is beyond just this. This is a very light. Oh, here we go. This one. Should read about this one a little bit. It's not super fantastic. I think this one might have been the one that pushed me over the edge. Is that I knew about these things, this domestic violence, and I knew about the alcohol. And again, I'm not condoning this in any way. This was bad, and it made me start to kind of like pull away a little bit from me being a huge Mel Gibson fan. And then I started to see some of this stuff. In particular, I saw something around this, and I was like, okay, I think you've just kind of crossed the line, and I need to really distance myself from you. Okay, so let's play this from both sides so we can understand kind of what I'm getting at. There's the side of Will Smith that I'm saying, like, don't throw Will out with the water, with the Will water. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, okay? Will made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Did he do something egregious like what Diddy, I think, has been doing for years? I don't think so. I mean, maybe he has, but the data that I have right now is he slapped a guy that he shouldn't have slapped, and like, bad Will. You be in timeout for a little bit, and you're going to be fine. All right? So forgive people if they make singular mistakes. On the other hand, when people make mistakes in repetition over a sequence of many years, at some point, you should maybe draw a line. Okay, that's the argument that I have. Now I want to flip it and play devil's advocate and say, well, What does Mel Gibson's personal life have to do with his acting? Like, so why is it that you care what he is as a person in terms of the things that he's doing for movies? Like, this is a very reasonable question, I think. Aren't they disjoint? Let's again foster goodwill. Let's not take a snarky view, and let's pretend that this is a very serious question, and let's treat it as such. So the reason why I think that you are going to struggle with this is that part of, for someone that I used to do some acting when I was in high school, long time ago. I'm of the belief that I guess there's many things, but one thing is that who a person is at their core is, it's very hard to elide that away completely when they're acting. I don't know that I've ever seen this. For example, like if you watch movies with Tom Hanks, I think you generally get a sense that Tom Hanks is probably a good guy. Why? Because like no matter what his role is, you kind of just have a sense of like he's kind of a good guy. Like you can kind of feel that this guy is a good guy. Even when he's playing a bad guy, it's sort of like, I don't know, you're just a likable guy. And you seem to have a good nature about you. But then you'll see other people that they do something, they're in a role, and you're like, this person plays dark really well. And you know what? Even when they're playing the good guy, they've got moments of darkness where you're kind of like, I don't know, it's feeling a little dark here. There's this young actress, I forget what her name is. She's in this Netflix movie. I don't know if Taylor's still around. She's in a Netflix movie like Something as a Criminal, Jenny as a Criminal or something. Let's see if I can look this up. Jenny as a Criminal or something like this. Or it's Someone as a Criminal Netflix. Is it Emily? Oh, yeah, it's Emily the Criminal. Okay. It's Emily the Criminal. Here we go. Okay, this lady, what is her name? Aubrey Plaza. Here's my take on Aubrey. Aubrey is hyper intelligent and she is very good at deadpan comedy. And she very clearly is like this, I think, in real life. And if you watch her in her movies, she has this sort of persona about her in almost any of the roles. No matter what it is, she still has this at her core, right? It's this sort of deadpan, she's going to stare. Yeah, yep. Aubrey Plaza. You're going to stare you in the face and say nothing, and you're going to get a lot just from her face. In fact, I'll be honest. Aubrey, in some ways, might be my hero in terms of the humor that I have. I joke at the university and say that I'm telling jokes constantly. You'll just never know because I don't laugh at my own jokes, and I'll tell them with a completely straight face. And so either you know that I'm joking or you don't. And that's sort of maybe the joke, at least for me. So even in this podcast, definitely in the one last night, I was making a whole bunch of jokes, and either you got the jokes or you didn't. And if you didn't, that's cool. And if you did, that's also cool. So my point is that Aubrey, I think, is this person. So even when she's acting, she's still a little bit of this person. All right, so now we go back to this. How is it then that you can have a disconnect between the person themselves and their craft, especially when their craft is them, right? It's not like Mel Gibson is out designing cars and we can buy the car that he's designing and be like, yeah, we don't like him as a person, but man, he makes really good cars. He is his brand. He is his craft. So we're seeing him, which is giving us this stuff, I think, in our face every time we see him. In fact, there is a somewhat famous YouTuber. I'm not going to mention this person's name, but I was somewhat of a fan of this person. Sort of. They started to, again, the evidence started to build up. They started to feel like it's a little bit of a money grab. Their channel became very sponsor heavy. There were just so many ads that they were having on there, and they're talking about how they're doing all these things that became very hard for me to believe that they were doing all these things. And then on top of that, there were then these strange allegations from a number of people about things that they were doing that wasn't great. And then I was like, okay, it's enough data. I have enough data, and now I just don't listen to this person anymore. That's what I mean about following the data. And there generally needs to be enough evidence to where, for me anyway, I can say, yeah, you've kind of crossed this line. It is not a one-time Will Smith slap. That doesn't do it for me, because I make those types of mistakes on the daily. And my hope is that when I make those mistakes, people tell me I'm an idiot and say, that's really dumb of you, Goju. You shouldn't have done that. And then I'll say, yeah, you're right. That was pretty stupid. I'm sorry. And then they'll say, okay, well, you're sorry. You're going to be put in timeout for a little bit, but we forgive you. That's my hope. On the other hand, I'm not going to say things like this didn't exist. I'm not going to say things that are anti this, because I don't believe in being anti this. I think that this is, I have some very deep thoughts about why people do certain things. And I think that there are certain things that we do that we can't necessarily change. Let me give you one very simple example. People generally cannot change the color of their skin. So why would you hate people for having a skin color that is different than yours? I don't think you should. It's not their choice. It's an immutable quality. They were just born that way. Maybe they don't want to be whatever color it is themselves. Okay? But don't dislike them because of an immutable thing. It's like saying that you are going to hate on people because they're short or they're tall, or they have blonde hair or brown hair or whatever. It's just a very strange thing to do. It's super reductive and very simplistic. And generally speaking, my view is that anyone that's paying attention to GTT hopefully has a more elevated view to not do that. I think that this is also in the space of an immutable quality. This is my belief. Because given the history of this, what some people will call preference, your preference for who you're attracted to. I'm staying away from certain words, so we keep this kid-friendly. But given the blowback that you get from doing this, why would anybody choose to do this? It's not a choice. It's not a choice. It is something that is ingrained in you. It's very much like my disposition to being attracted to people that are not male. I don't know that I ever made that decision. It's just how I'm wired. I couldn't change it if I wanted to. And at this point, if I was a private conversation, I would usually make many jokes, but I'm not going to do that here. Okay? The point is, there'd be jokes about me, not this group of people. The point is that this is one of those things where why would you pick on people in this? It's like picking on people because they have a color of skin that they didn't choose. It doesn't make any sense. Do you dislike me because my skin is maybe brown? I didn't choose it. What would it be if I could choose it? I don't know. Maybe it would be this color, maybe it would be something else, but I have no say in it. So it is what it is. And so you shouldn't judge people based on immutable qualities. You should judge people based on mutable qualities. You should judge people based on decisions that they make, actions that they take, things that they do, and let them decide, or let them tell you who they are. Their decisions influence what your view of them will be. This is at least my take. And this is why I kind of had a falling out with Mel Gibson. Is there was a buildup of this stuff. I absolutely love the guy. And then slowly there was evidence and evidence and evidence and evidence. And then I was like, okay, at what point is there enough evidence? I think I've reached enough evidence. And now I'm not sure where I am. I'm like, I don't want to hold him. Like, I want to be someone that forgives people, not forgets, but forgives, not hold grudges. But at the same time, people shouldn't get a pass if they do really egregious things. It's one thing to slap Chris Rock once and be like, oh, dude, my bad. It's another thing to have a laundry list of like, oh, you did this and you beat this. And, like the other thing too is when you're in a physically superior position to another human being or another creature, and you use the physically superior thing to influence harm or to inflict harm on that other thing, that has bad actor written all over it. This is, for example, like why anyone that hurts animals is immediately off my list. If you own a dog or a cat or any kind of animal and you beat that animal, you're off my list. Sorry, you're off my list. Why? Because that animal, unless it's like some huge dog, it doesn't stand a chance against you. Plus, it relies on you for food and all these other stuff. So don't do that, right? Like, you're the one in the position of power. Why am I mentioning this? Anytime that I read about a person that is physically dominant to another person, and they use that physical dominance on the other person, I'm not a fan. Because it's not a fair fight. It's like, okay, I 2x you in my size and my strength and all that. So let's fight. Like, nobody wants to see that. That's you have a massive advantage. You have all the power. You should have the responsibility to know, don't do this. And is it a little bit unfair that it can go the other way? Sure, but that's just life, right? Is that, yes, if the person that is Merle has bitten me a couple times, it's life. I probably had it coming, but do I put him down because he's bitten me because I accidentally like leaned on his tail? No, he didn't mean to do it. I'm the one that like hurt him a little bit, and so he's flipping out. So maybe he broke skin or whatever, but it's kind of my fault. And so I just take the high road. What I don't do is like pummel him into oblivion. Like, what kind of person does this? This is definitely not someone that I think has the right kind of moral compass. And so again, there are things that's why, again, I look at the Will Smith and Chris Rock. If Will Smith slapped his wife, it would be a totally different thing. But it's contextual, right? It's this notion called contextual ethics, right? What is contextual? What are contextual ethics? Contextual ethics. Approach of ethical decision-making that emphasizes the importance of considering the specific circumstances, environment, and relationships in a situation. Instead of relying solely on fixed universal moral rules or absolutes, contextual ethics suggests the ethical judgments are not always universally applicable and can be shaped by the unique details of a given context. This is yes. So I follow contextual ethics. I first learned about contextual ethics in a philosophy class when I was like 17 years old. And I was like, yeah, that's what I believe. I believe that if you randomly slap a person for no reason, you should be judged maybe harshly. But if you slap somebody that is berating your wife on a public stage, I'm probably going to be a little bit more lenient about that, because I think that it's hard to say that is like 100% the wrong decision. I think it's like 90% the wrong decision. I think if we were to replay that, maybe what I would have done, like, again, hindsight is 20/20, right? In the moment, and this is also this goes back to Stoicism, and why Stoicism I think is so important is we shouldn't give in to our emotions. This is the type of stuff that happens when you give in to your emotions in the moment, is that you make bad decisions and then you do something that you regret. So when you feel that burning, that your heart rate is accelerating, your blood pressure, all of this stuff, control that. Do not act. Take a deep breath. Try to build up the resilience until you get the calm inside of you. And then once you've established the calm and your heart is no longer racing and you feel your blood pressure returning to normal, then act. Then act. And the more you practice this, at least this has been my experience, is the more you practice this, the better you get at this, the faster you will turn this around. When I first started practicing Stoicism, it would take me 24 hours to chill on things. Now I can chill on things, depending on how severe it is, maybe in 30 seconds. In some cases, 10 seconds. So like with anything, I think building emotional resilience, it's a skill. It's just practiced. So, all right, I think that we've gone down this deep enough. We've looked at why I do, and I do support people. I don't necessarily support people. So minimally, I think you know how I feel about this. And I do believe that this follows our core principles, right? If we go back to the traits that we talk about, this follows, I think, in some ways, a few different things. First, we don't get distracted by the little things. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, is that a big thing? I don't know. I guess that's for everybody on their own to decide. But is what Mel Gibson did a big thing? I think some of them are hard to dismiss. On top of that, we are learning from others' mistakes, right? So that's great. But there's something about data, is we're essentially we're not letting our emotions control us, and we're using data to help us make decisions. Okay. I need to take a short bio break. We're going to pause this for a moment, and then we're going to get into the vibe coding thing. So you have a minute or two to refill your stuff, get your popcorn, and we'll be right back. Okay. Thanks, guys. We are back. So be kind of careful with this so it doesn't break. Let me just adjust my seat here. At some point, I'll explain why I work from a couch rather than a chair. And it's quite intentional, as I suspect some of you probably know. Okay, we're going to talk about vibing. Now, in the last episode, I was mentioning how I do think vibe coding can be helpful, just principally not for production quality software systems, and that I think a lot of people are using this maybe the wrong way. Or minimally, I feel like the people that are promoting this seem to be trying to promote it in ways that I think they feel a little bit disingenuous to me. Or either they're sort of disingenuous in what their capabilities are, or they're unaware of what software engineering really looks like. And either of those, in this particular case, if you're developing vibe coding tools, I think it's not a good look for the vibe code. Like, if they are doing it because they're bad actors, that's not good. You don't really want that. And if they're doing it because they don't actually understand software engineering, then that's also not a good look, because why would you buy a software development tool from people that don't understand the principles of software engineering? I wouldn't. So I know many of these folks are actually pretty smart people. Not all of them, but many of them. And I think that they are just trying to overhype it. And I want them to chill because it has value, just not, it's not a panacea. So we're going to look at how I use it and a concrete example of how I think they can be used for things that are actually valuable, and they are relevant to me and the things that I'm doing. And like I have an AI company and I teach this stuff at the university, and I've built many large scale software systems, and I still use them. I just use them in the way that I described. I don't use them for production quality code, but there's lots of systems that we build. As if you worked at Merle, you would see that I'm all about automating anything and everything we can. If we can automate it to make it faster, I want us to do that because it will save us time. For example, one of the things that I have to do is I need to create a thumbnail for each of our GTT episodes. Or if I don't do it, somebody is going to have to do it. And that is going to be a manual process. Now, there are auto thumbnail generators, and I've used some of them, and mostly I find that they're not capturing what I want, that I can do as good a job, if not better job myself, just by skimming through the video very quickly and then seeing that, oh, here's the spot where I could just screenshot this and be like, there you go, there's my thumbnail. And that's basically what they're doing. They're doing at that level of sophistication. And so it's uninteresting to me. I want something that's better. So I vibed my way to the GTT thumbnail generator. We now have the Goju Tech Talk thumbnail generator. That's what this is. So what is this? Well, it's a vibe coding thing. So here's the code, right? And by the way, this isn't done. I'm just iterating on it. And I just like vibed myself to this within just a few minutes earlier today. And I know that you can, this isn't like the full-blown enterprise vibing. Like I don't have Cursor or Windsurf or whatever the IDE, but I don't need it for this. I'm just using, what I generally do is I try to do something that requires the least amount of resistance for the thing that I'm trying to achieve. And I know that this is mostly a toy. I don't know what the result is going to be, so I'm just going to play. I'm just going to play around, and I want to see, and it's going to help me kind of understand this. So what I know that I do want to do is I know that let's just be honest for a moment. I know that many of the thumbnails for GTT are just bad. I know they're bad. And generally speaking, I don't care. The reason why I don't care is I don't think people are watching GTT because of how good or bad the thumbnails are. I think that once they start watching and they become a jeter, they are doing it because the content is hopefully interesting to them, that they maybe like my nuanced takes on things, the fact that I'm trying to be fair, and maybe I share a perspective that's a bit unusual in this polarizing world that we live in, where like you have to be 1,000% for something or 1,000% against something. And mostly that's just, in my view, nonsense. It's silly. The world doesn't work like this. It's shades of gray, unless it's hard science. And there is a space for that. Most of the world, though, that we live in, especially as humans, it's soft science. Why? Because we are emotional and subjective creatures ourselves. We're not robots. And so people do stuff that isn't perfectly logical, and then we have to kind of reason about that. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is I know that some of these thumbnails are terrible. They are so bad. Like this one is, what is this goofy look I have on my face, right? And this text, I gotta be honest, this one I think I made intentionally bad. I was trying to make it just like, I'm just gonna make this as bad and silly as I can. I think I was doing a similar thing with this one on the Build Strong Networks, Don't Burn Bridges. Is basically, you can kind of tell like the level of care that I have. And again, the reason why I don't care is this is not the actual meal. This is not the actual movie. This is just like the trailer of it. Now, what we're starting to see is some of the videos, not all of them, people seem to really like. Like, for example, this Foster Goodwill. I don't know why almost 150,000 views have happened for this video. I haven't actually watched it, but people seem to like it. And the former thumbnail on this was horrific. It was so bad. And there's several others in here that I haven't. Like, for example, this Enjoy the Journey. Like, look at this. Look at this. Enjoy the Journey. We look at this for a second. Like, look at this small footsteps every day. These are laughably bad, right? I'm all for making fun of myself when I'm doing really bad, silly, low quality things and just being honest about it. Because I have to do this all the time. Like, this is part of the cost of doing a lot of things, is sometimes you have to be like, look, I just need to get this done. I know I don't want to race to the end, but I don't have time. And the thing that I didn't race to the end on is the content, right? You'll often find that I try very hard not to race through our topics, to instead create a very calm and cool atmosphere. That's what I'm trying to do, is make this something like you could watch GTT episodes while you're falling asleep. In the background, you could listen to these as podcasts while you're on a drive. Road trips might be fun. It's something that's like hopefully a voice of reason that's kind of talking to you as you're going about your day. It's not meant to be like super jarring. It's meant to kind of just I'm be someone that I'm your older uncle. I'm Uncle Goju, or maybe I'm younger than you and I'm your nephew. Whatever. I'm a family member and we're all friends and we're just talking about stuff. And so from that view, what matters is more about the things that we're talking about and the things that we're discussing than the still image that's a pretty picture that you see for about 3 seconds. And then you get to the actual meat and potatoes of the conversation. However, I also understand that for people who have not seen Goju Tech Talk, they might be turned off by like, what is this guy's sour face with like, well, like, let's be real for a second. This is maybe not super great as a thumbnail. And maybe in a strange way, that's what makes it great, is the fact that it's not great. And by the way, I'm all for playing that card as well. Like making it, I think this is something Asmund Gold does extremely well, making it intentionally bad so people know, look, I'm just going to be real. And in the real world, things aren't perfectly photoshopped, that Goju has bad hair days and Goju just generally doesn't care. Like, what's going on with my hair right now, right? This is just post shower. It's a mess. Clearly, it's not a top priority to me. And if that's the type of content that you want to consume, like someone with perfect hair, yeah, you're not going to get that here, right? I'm going to like let all my grays grow in. By the way, isn't this interesting? Is that like, just as an aside, my hair is mostly black or dark brown or whatever on top. But if you go on the side and under, it's like almost all gray. Like on both sides. It's just, I mean, I don't know why it's like this. It's just, and for those of you that think that like I can't grow hair on facial hair here, I mean, sure, I have got all kinds of spottiness. It's more Goju imperfections. But this is actually, I do have hair that grows in. It's just gray. It's all gray. And so for some reason, it's just a gray spot, a gray patch. I've got some more gray patches like down in here. Anyway, the point is, I don't care generally about these things that are superficial, and hopefully most of you don't either. You're here for the meat and potatoes. However, if we want to get new viewers, they might be turned off by this, just the volume of stupidity and the lack of, like, what's going on. Like, again, there's level of bad, but look at this. This is like, and I can't tell, I'll be honest, I can't tell if this is actually helping me or hurting me, because I think that the world that we live in today, there's a lot of super pretty, polished Photoshop people out in the world that are doing content, and I'm not that guy. Like, and clearly you can tell that not only am I not that guy, I'm not even trying to be that guy. So for the people, look at this, it's the same thing over here. What's going on, right? I just look like I'm super angry. My hair here is just a wreck. So on one hand, this is actually, I think, hurting me significantly for people that want the super photoshopped, what are the lens or the whatever the thing is that they do with their face. Like, no, this is all real stuff here, right? So it could work against me. I actually think that in some cases it's working for me, because I think that people are to the point where they're so annoyed with all the fakeness that's out there, all the manicured, perfect, just whatever, that they don't want this artificialness anymore. They just want something real, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not pretty, even with, warts and all, with mistakes and random breaks and errors and this kind of thing. So I think I'm a bit conflicted about it. And so I'll continue to do kind of bad thumbnails, but maybe not this level of bad. Like this, don't race to the end and be quietly confident. This one I think is a fairly popular episode, but look at that thumbnail. I mean, that thumbnail is atrocious. Okay, so this is the backstory of how I got inspired to basically say, okay, I'm going to have to level up on some of these thumbnails, so I'm going to vibe code my way out of this. I could just do this manually, but I plan to do this channel until I can't do this channel anymore, which means I need some help. And one of the core requirements that I have for the things that I'm building, it has to help me improve, goes back to machine programming. It needs to improve the productivity, and it needs to improve the quality. If it's not making me faster and it's not making the output better, I can just do it myself. So it has to do those two things. And so now I have something that is going to do that for me. So I built this GTT thumbnail generator, and that's all this does is that. And you may remember that in one of the prior episodes, I was saying, don't be a prompt engineer. Don't do prompt engineering. You may notice there is a prompt in here somewhere. Did they obfuscate this out? Oh, here it is. Here's the prompt. Okay. Here's the prompt that it has embedded into this. I don't write this prompt. The AI writes the prompt for me. You'll notice that I'm essentially daisy chaining the AIs. So I have a front-end AI that's helping me with this, and then I tell it what I want the prompt to be, and then I want it to create a better prompt than what I'm going to tell it, and it does that. Then once it creates that, it then sends it to another AI that then actually does the generation. And because that other AI is like supremely stupid in its inability to create landscape images, I have to then have the outer AI fix the image because it needs to sort of be in landscape, which is what you'll see it do here in a second. It still actually is creating a portrait image, but I want it in landscape because I know that the thumbnails will be in landscape. And if it shows me an image that looks good in landscape, then when I pull it into PowerPoint or whatever editing tool that's going to help me create the final thumbnail, I then changed the ratio of the image from portrait to landscape. So it goes from whatever to 16:9, and then it shows up exactly like it shows in the preview window of the GTT thumbnail generator. Keep in mind, this is a fully functioning prototype. This works. So all I do is I click on this button, and then it's going to generate a new image for me. And once I get this sophisticated enough, as I was telling Taylor, I'm going to look at this guy. This guy's got 3 arms. Maybe I'll use this one just as an inside joke to, let's actually, let's save this image just so, as you can see, I was fiddling with this. This will be maybe our inside jokes with this AI. If anybody asks, was that created by an AI? It should hopefully be obvious. Okay, so now I want to show you a little bit about why this is. I feel like there should be a third arm here, and they're not even shaking the right way. Like I don't know exactly what's going on here. It's pretty great. But I want to also point out a couple things on why this is, again, vibe coding and why this is not ready for production quality. So I started off and I'm asking it to make this. I got a hint. Yeah. Okay. Taylor's drifting back into his bad puns, which we expected he would do at some point. He just, he's arrived. Okay, so I originally started with the thumbnail for the episode on the legacy of a developer. And this one's super sensitive, right? Because I'm actually talking about being alive and then not being alive. But I wanted to try to have something that captured sort of this essence of us living on digitally in code. And so it took a couple tries, and I'm kind of describing in a way what I'm looking for, and we did some iteration. So this guy created this HTML page that essentially created all the code for me, and then we iterated on it. Now check this out. I say, change the format so it's landscape, not portrait. You can see now that this is landscape. It's not portrait. Okay, but what you may not realize is that this is actually still portrait. It's just cropping it because the backend system can't seem to take this guidance. And you'll see me arguing with the AI to do this. So change the format so it's landscape, not portrait. I've updated the code to request a landscape format, blah, blah, blah. I also slightly increased this. Okay, so here's your first clue, is that it's saying I've updated the code to request the landscape format. So I'm dealing with an AI that's helping me write the code that's going to plug into the Gemini backend. That's another AI. And so it's going to request that AI do this in landscape. And then you'll see that I say again, change the code so it generates images that are landscape, not portrait, and then regenerate the current image to be landscape, not portrait. I'm not getting angry. I'm trying to type this in all caps so it's super clear what the key words are. All right. Then it says the code is already configured to generate images in landscape format. By the way, it wasn't at this point. I added the image should be in landscape format to the prompt in the previous turn. Yeah, okay, you did that and it didn't work, yo. So you did it, but it didn't work. So, and then it says, please click the generate image to see if you can get it into, oh, here we go. And keep in mind, strong claim. And it will be in landscape orientation. No, I tried it and it wasn't. So I told it that. I tried it. It's still not landscape mode. Please fix it. All right. It says, I understand the previous attempt didn't yield the desired landscape image. I've updated the code with a more explicit instruction in the prompt, specifically requesting a 16:9 ratio. And that got me thinking, oh, let's just use 16:9. This will be easier to talk about. I don't have to type the word landscape. This should help the model generate a more consistently landscaped oriented output. I've slightly increased this, blah, blah, blah. All right. I say again, because I'm fighting this battle, ensure the generated image is 16:9. It still is not. Look at the current current output images dimensions. I'm trying to help it understand that it says it's doing this and it's not. Now, one thing that you may notice is that I'm prompting it and I'm having discussion with this, and then it is then prompting another system. And so it's a cascade of prompts, which is pretty common these days as you do like the chain of thought reasoning, which, is, I don't know that it's all that. But the point of this with these prompts and why it's not engineering is that if it were engineering, when I ask it to do this the first time, it does it. That would be engineering. And I ask it to do this and it doesn't do this. And now I have to continue to try to massage the language to help it try to figure out how to do this. And I'm trying and I'm trying and I'm trying and it's not doing it. Look at this. I understand it's not consistently. And I'm like, it's not that it's not consistent. It's just not doing it. I'm doing it again, asking it. I probably asked it like 4 or 5 times now. By the way, this is vibe coding, guys. This is what your vibing is going to look like. Is you're going to just sit around and argue with AI and just try different things to eventually convince it to do the thing that you want it to do. Now, I could go into the code and try to hack on this and change this, but I want to try to see if I can do this without doing that. Part of the reason for that is I'm trying to see what is it like if you're vibe coding and you can't code. You don't know how to code. You don't know what all this stuff is. Like, you don't understand how to read JSON, right? Or you don't understand what like these various links are, or what meta information is inside of these various tags, what an HTML file looks like, and what embedded JavaScript looks like, right? Most people don't know, that are not coders, they don't know all these things. And so I'm trying to play dumb on purpose. I could edit it, but that's the whole point of the vibe coding thing, right? Is that you don't have to code. So I'm trying to play this out as if I can't code. So still wrong. Ensure the generated image matches the dimensions for a YouTube thumbnail. So I finally got clever and thought, oh, YouTube thumbnail, that might help it. So then it leans in on this. Oh, YouTube thumbnail. Okay. I'll do it like this. This is the standard 16 by 9. And then it says this. This part I think is pretty illuminating. And hopefully this is helping you understand why it's not a good idea to use this for production. Because just because you get this thing to do the right thing, it's largely almost by luck. It's like, okay, it does the right thing. Nobody touch it. We don't know how it's doing it. It took a long time to get here. It's super fragile. Nobody actually understands it. Don't touch it. Don't tell it to change the code at all. Just like save this and then we'll fiddle with this. And your code should generally not be that flimsy. So here it says, this part I think was super interesting. While the model's adherence to exact pixel dimensions can be challenging, specifying the exact use case and dimensions in the prompt is best way to guide its generation. Okay, so it's basically, I think, saying, yeah, the YouTube thing might help. Okay. It failed again. The output image is not 16 by 9. Try again. It's like, I'm just going to keep fighting this battle. Now, also keep in mind, not all people are as resilient as I am. They're going to just they might just give up. And again, this is the state of vibe coding. I also want to share that I'm aware that I could use other more sophisticated things that could do image generation. And one of those could be Midjourney. But what I make as a habit of mine is if I think a company is doing stuff that's like potentially unethical, like, and it's like they're collecting a lot more bad evidence than good evidence, then what I'll generally try to do is not use their stuff. And so am I saying that Google is perfect? No. Google's not perfect. I know Google's not perfect and they make all kinds of mistakes. But Are they being sued by Disney for creating a system that is clearly been trained on Disney related stuff and producing Disney like lookalikes? They are not, but Midjourney, as I understand it, is. And again, that's a choice. Midjourney chose to train on images that are copyrighted, and it didn't have to do that. And so I'm choosing to go the slower way, even though I know that Midjourney is a better AI system for image generation. And then this is what missionaries do. This is why missionaries tend to be slower, is that missionaries know there's a faster way to do things, but it would potentially compromise their ethics. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm not trying to take the moral high ground here. I'm not perfect. I'm the guy that will scoop up the dog poop and then I leave the bag. Okay, I'm that guy. So I want to be super clear. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm so ethical, everything I do is right. It's not that at all. I'm just trying to do essentially the best I can. And when I think someone has crossed the line, they've Mel Gibsoned themselves out, then I won't use it. But if they've just Will Smith themselves, I'll still use it. So that's the way I kind of think about things right now with Google. I think Google has Will Smith themselves, but they haven't Mel Gibson themselves. And I think that Midjourney has Mel Gibson themselves. And if I have alternatives, I'm gonna use something that's not Mel Gibsoning themselves, if that makes sense. So now we have the context of these stories, so hopefully it makes more sense. All right, so I'm still fighting with it on the 16 by 9. It's not that it isn't consistently generating 16 by 9. It has never generated, so I'm trying to help it here. Truthfully, I'm still not getting angry because it doesn't make any sense to get angry at an AI. It's not a human. I'm just trying to capitalize things so it can focus on its attention on the things getting wrong. It still doesn't work. Now I'm like, do this. When you get, I'm trying to get creative, right? So, and this worked. And again, this is not science, guys. This is not engineering. That's why it's not prompt engineering. This is like, as one of our viewers said, this is prompt alchemy. I'm just like alcheming my way and just tossing stuff together and then hoping something's going to work in the moment, and then that's all it's going to work for. So here's what I said. Do this. When you get the image back, send it to another AI and recrop it so it's 16 by 9 and then present it to me. And then it says, you look, I can't do that. I can't send the image to another AI. And by the way, it can, because it is. Like, it's doing it right here. What is this? It's sending it to another AI. I'm interfacing with one AI and it's doing this, right? This is the one that's like natural language processing and understanding and all that. This is the one that does like image generation. These are different AI systems. So yeah, you absolutely can. You lying AI. Stop lying to me. Unfortunately, I cannot directly send the image to another AI to recrop it. However, I can modify the code to ensure the display of the image is 16 by 9. And that is what worked. And ultimately, all I really care about is, excuse me, I just want to make sure that it looks good in 16 by 9, because ultimately that's the format that I'm going to use. And so I just want it to take up the whole screen in the 16 by 9 format. And then I'm going to use it as a background and I'll like overlay things. And so if it shows me a 16 by 9 image in landscape mode that feels like, okay, this would look good, then when I pull it into PowerPoint or whatever, I will recrop it and it'll give the exact essential sketch layout as we're seeing here and we're seeing in the preview that it gives. And then, so that worked. And then I started going through and doing a different topics, because I started to get into different videos. And then I changed it. So now this is the GDT thumbnail generator. And like, it knows now, it's learned that like here, it's the GDT thumbnail generator. We've got our system. And as I was telling Taylor, what I'll probably do next, once this gets hardened enough, is I'll take all of this code, I'll have it local, I'll then put it in a loop, and then I will spawn it off to generate like 10 or 20 thumbnails once I finish a video, and then it'll generate it. I'll then look at those and decide which one I want to use. There's still more steps that I have to do that aren't fully automated, but we're getting there. So I want you to see this in practice now, is that, as I was mentioning before, I don't really do the prompt engineering. So I've offloaded the task of the prompt engineering to this AI. So this AI does the prompt for me. And you can see that it was in the code, but it doesn't just do what I tell it. I have it figure something out that's better. So I'm daisy chaining the AIs to make them do all the heavy lifting. And keep in mind, this is a real software system now. Like, look, it has its own name. I can click this button and this is a functioning button that actually is invoking the AI, and it's going to generate different images based on the things that I say. That looks very close or identical, almost identical to the one I have. Okay, so now we're going to see it work for this episode. This episode, we're talking about these two things, missionaries and mercenaries and vibe coding. All right, so we'll try to have it do the thing that it's doing now. So we'll figure out, this is what we'll call a meta prompt. This is a meta prompt because I'm going to give it a prompt that is going to explain how to generate another prompt that it will generate and then drop it in, and then it'll update this code with the new prompt that it's created, because I don't want to spend time writing a fancy one. I'm going to make it figure out the fancy one. And then I'll click on the button, and then we'll have a new image for this topic. So update the prompt for this image and include fancy wordings to make the image high quality. And there's a certain thing that they call this. It's like this artistic, stylized illustration, and make the image stylized, quasi-real. I don't know, something like that. Update the prompt for this image for the following topic. Okay, our topic is this is going to be real tricky because this is two totally disjoint ideas. I don't know what it's going to do. The benefits of being a missionary over being a mercenary in relationship to companies, and someone vibe coding. This is going to be, I think this is going to be quite amusing. Like, I have no idea what this is going to do. These are pretty disjoint ideas. So you can see now it's like, okay, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to update this. I've changed it. And now let's see what we get. So it's updated the prompt. And so I have my vibe coded thing. It handles the prompt injection itself. And now we have a totally different type of image. So what we wanted was basically something showing missionaries and mercenaries and vibe coding. Is this missionaries and mercenaries and vibe coding? I mean, it could be. Like, this could be, these guys could be missionaries here. Maybe this is the mercenary and maybe this is the vibe coded thing. Like, I don't know. But we could just do this all day. We can just sit here and click this button and just, it should keep generating different images. And then I've never seen anyone vibe code like that before. Yeah, I know. I don't know that I've seen people vibe code like this before either. They're, I mean, maybe that's what the paper is or something. Okay, so it clearly has this theme of like these boxes. It seems to like uh these cubes. Okay, cool. All right. All right, we're getting into something strange now. Like this kind of feels a little bit like vibe coding. This might feel like missionaries and mercenaries. Like I think that like this guy's got 3 arms. That definitely feels like it's a vibe coding thing. So yeah, let's go ahead and save this image in my slew of images. And now let's generate another one. And maybe we'll do just like a couple more just so we can see. Yeah, it really likes these cube things. Okay. And we may need to revise the prompt, and we can do that pretty easily. Okay. Revise the prompt so the vibe coders are actually vibe coding, not, I don't know, whatever they are doing right now. And notice too that I just have random words in here that just make no sense. This is clearly not a scientific process. This is just whatever. All right, let's see what it does. So it's told me it's made some changes. We don't need to read this. We just want to see what the output is. Let's take a look. All right. Hey guys, we're getting somewhere. Now look at this. This actually, I think, is the first one that feels like something is going on here where it's a little chaotic. I don't actually know, but it does feel like this guy might be vibing or doing something. And maybe he's a missionary. I don't know about the missionary mercenary, but this is, in my mind, not bad. For this topic of missionary and mercenary, this is like not a huge miss in my mind. Yeah. In fact, I'll probably use this image as an image for it may be our thumbnail for this episode. And notice too that I'm like doing iterative refinement on the prompt without even revising the whole prompt. I'm just saying, hey, you revise the prompt and make it do whatever. And so it's going to do all this. I could even have it click the button for me, but I like to click the button, guys. And then on top of that, when I start going into generation mode, I can just keep clicking the button. And as I was mentioning before, I'll probably add a loop to this and I'll make it generate 20 things. Also, it's taking a little while to generate the images. And here's the beauty of you being like a super coder or knowing the intricacies of how this is done. If it does take it that long to generate that image, which it's entirely possible that it is, although I believe I'm being throttled, what I can do is I could launch 10 instances simultaneously, and they all are executing asynchronously on different servers that then are essentially, instead of having it be serial execution of this one after another, they're staggered essentially almost in perfect sequence. It's just milliseconds off because I'm going to put it in a loop. And then it will essentially generate the 10 images, 20 images, as long as I don't reach like a throttle bottleneck where Google will like cut me off and say, you're done for the day. If it doesn't hit that, then I'll generate all 20 images with the different variants once I get the prompt right in about the same time it would take to generate just one image. But that will require some advanced coding, and I don't think the system can do that, so I'm going to do that. I have to modify this. But you can see that it's not going to be too hard. All I have to do is essentially wrap this inside of a for loop and then just spawn this off so it's like it's happening asynchronously. So I'll probably create this maybe as a function or something, right? It's got already, this is an asynchronous function that's going to execute here. So I can just essentially figure out how to invoke this 10 different times, 10 different servers, and just try to make sure that they're not producing the same image. which they probably won't because they're stochastic systems anyway. The only trick is we need to make sure that we get the prompt right before we spawn that off. And you'll also notice too that the prompt that it actually gives us, I just want you guys to see how I was saying I don't do the prompts myself. I have the machine do it for me because it's more work than I want to do. That's the prompt that it's generated. And it's changing stuff in line each time I change the picture or the focus, and it's doing it all on its own. I'm not doing anything. I just give it the minor tips over here of like, hey, the minor tips over here to essentially revise this. That's basically it. Okay. So hopefully that was a little mild entertainment on vibe coding and how vibe coding can be useful. Like this is going to be, or this is at least the beginnings of my GTT thumbnail generator. And it actually does work. And it was written by a vibe coding system. And is it perfect? No, but it's not meant to be perfect. It's just a toy, but it's a toy that's still helping me. And so that's why when I say it's a toy, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily bad. It just means that I'm going to use this internally and that this is never meant to see the light of day. Because if it did, this code is not super great. It probably can break 100 different ways. And there's other bad things that could happen. It's probably not secure at all. There's just a whole bunch of vetting that this likely needs to go through. But if you have no intentions to do that and you're trying to build like your own little scripts, right? Like I kind of think of it as how the way I use Python these days is I'll write Python code mostly to create like little scripts to do stuff because I can code in Python. I mean, Python sort of like codes itself very much like these vibe things do. And so then I can automate these processes. And this is an example of that. So hopefully this, maybe if you are totally against vibe coding, hopefully you can see what I'm saying now. Like, no, I think that it can have value. Don't use them for production. All the things that I was saying before about like, yes, they do have major weaknesses and they're not going to be building spaceships anytime soon. However, they're not without any value. I think that that's too harsh. I think that they do have value. It's far more limited than what the VCs are, or the VCs and the startups are saying. I think it's both of them. Interestingly enough, I think it's strangely probably more the VCs than it is the startups, because the VCs are basically trying to ensure that they're going to get investment and the hype and the valuation so they can do like fast exits and all this other stuff. Whereas the founders and the startups are probably trying to, I hope, build a product that has value. All right. I think that we're good for today. 2.5 hours is pretty good. Before I wrap this up, I just want to see if anybody has any additional comments, questions, anything before I click the adjourn button. And that's like a little heart love from Goju. All right. I think that's enough latency for people to chime in. And I think that we're all tired and we have lots of stuff to think about. So we're going to call this a day. Thanks everybody for logging in and checking this out. And we will see you next time. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, T. Thank you, everybody.